Oh, hello everybody. Looks like AngularJS gets the crowd. It's interesting. So, I'm Nils. I'm working for a company called Moving Image 24. What we do is, no, that's not the website I wanted to show. Sorry. Come on. Well, sorry about that. That was supposed to be the website. So, it's a company that does video asset management, video streaming, and transcoding and stuff like that. But the reason I'm actually here is that I want to show you a tiny little application with AngularJS and Java in the back end, because that's what we're actually doing. But it's just a tiny little demo application. So, I think Java's great for the back end. I mean, obviously at a Java conference, most people would agree. There's a wealth of nice frameworks and standards that allow us to, write pretty concise APIs. It provides, stuff like JAX-RS or other great APIs and frameworks for REST APIs. There is CDI or there is Spring for dependency injection, and it's all pretty easy these days in the back end to write quite powerful applications. But then in the front end, there is HTML5, which means mainly HTML for the markup, CSS for visualizing and making things pretty, and then there is JavaScript for the logic. And so then that leaves us with two different worlds, and they need to communicate somehow. And the way they communicate is mainly through HTTP. So what's really important for us is that we're able to have an interface between, on the one side speaking HTTP and on the other side. So we need to be able to write concise, let's say, HTTP APIs, which, well, a lot of people refer to it as REST. I think in the context of doing web applications with AngularJS, sometimes you can't really stick strictly to REST, so I'm a bit careful with that term. But yeah, mostly it's referred to as REST APIs. So what I'll do now is I'll just jump right into the code and try to show you. I mean, there's definitely not enough time to actually, code a whole application with, front end and back end. But I want to show at least a little bit of live coding. So what I'm going to do is I'm just quickly going to walk you through the back end, which you should see the code here now. So it's a plain, actually Java Enterprise, Java EE6 application using JAX-RS for the REST portion, or the speaking to HTTP basically, and then Hibernate or JPA for storage or for persistence. And so we're just going to start with the entity. I'm actually doing something here which I probably wouldn't recommend for bigger applications or like a serious architecture, but here I'm just combining I have the entity class here, which is used both for storing the data in the database, but I'm going to use it as well as like a data transfer object. So it's going to be transformed to JSON and sent to the client. I guess you would separate that in a serious application. So I'm just going to go through this quickly. It's a simple to-do application, which is kind of like the standard demo app for these kinds of AngularJS and also a number of other frameworks that do similar things. I just have a couple of simple attributes here. I just want to know the creation date of the to-do item, the text, the actual to do, and I want to know whether it's done or not. And then we can already do some fun stuff with it in the front end. Then the next thing is I'm just using a simple service. Here again, the same thing. Some people might say you want to separate, database and actual services, database access and actual services. But here I'm just doing both in the same class. Just getting my persistence context or entity manager here, and just I just have a couple of methods to access the to-do items and store them in the database and so on. And then to expose it to the front end, this is basically the important class. So this is like the to-do resource, or what's going to be called from through HTTP. I just have a couple of simple methods in there to create to-do items, to get all of them, which again you might want to limit that in a real application, but here I'm just getting everything. So if I have millions of entries there, my server is just going to burn. And then just get a single item by ID. And I actually have delete down here, so this is all pretty standard. The only thing I'd like to point out is that I'm using patch here, which everything we've seen so far in this in the to-do resource is standard JAX-RS. Patch is not really part of that, but I want to be able to update an object without sending the entire object. So I want to be able to just send whether the to-do item is done or not, just a single attribute, and update that. So that's why I added patch here. I'm going to be deploying to Wildfly, which is the latest JBoss server, and there behind the scenes it's REST Easy, and REST Easy actually supports this patch annotation if you provide it, and then it will understand it and interpret it the right way. Okay, so I'm just going to show you one thing quickly. I'm just going to go to the terminal here and do a little curl to create to-do items. So this application is running, and I can just use the command line curl in order to just send a simple HTTP request over to create a to-do item. And what's interesting is basically this bottom part here. The data was sent over there. I'm getting a HTTP 201, which means created, and I'm also getting a location header, which tells me where I can later access this object that I just created. So as you can see, I can just get that with the given location. So that's pretty much it for the back end. And now I'm going to switch to the front end. Oh, there we go. And this is sorry, just quickly have to check one thing. So actually one thing I should show you before I do this is I've got Apache running here with a reverse proxy, which lets me access this REST backend through the port 80, so I don't have to, I'm not going to have any problems with the with cross-domain with the cross-domain policy. And I also have a symbolic link, which let me show you that as well. I think it should be here. Yeah, exactly. So I've got this symbolic link in the in the content root of the web server, which just basically points to my to-do application here. So if I go back, I end up here. Okay, Now, this is just the static application, but it shows us what we want to achieve in the end. This is not showing any actual data, so I'm just going to jump right into the AngularJS application and try to show you at least a couple of things how I'm going to make this actually dynamic, which is just by adding an ng app ToDo app. There we go. And I'm going to need to tell Angular where the controller is. And this way I should have, at least when I reload the page, it should throw no errors. I'm just going to verify that. Yeah, there we go. But so now I have this, this part here. It's just a static list, and you can see the top item is actually, with a strike through, and the bottom one, and the top one is displayed normally. So I'd like to get that behavior, and I actually like to show some real data here. So I'm just going to add an ng repeat here and tell it to load to show, to create one list item for each to-do in the to-dos, which I've actually already got in the controller. I won't have enough time to actually show you how I'm building the controller, so you just have to assume that it's there. I can show it to you quickly, but I just prepared this because I wouldn't get around to actually writing that code there. And now here I can actually just access, which I suppose most of you are familiar with. I can just access the objects like this, and I had the ToDo Text, and if everything went right, yeah, this is actually the one item that we got with curl as well earlier on. And as you can see, like here in the console, I can actually look at this, and I can see the request, and Angular went ahead and fetched that for me, which happens through the service. So I could show you a bunch of other things, but I'm just going to switch to my branch that is actually working and show you the whole thing, because then I'll just point you to the demo project so that I won't use more time than I actually have here. So this is the basic idea. You can just complete a task by clicking this. You can clear the completed ones, and you can add new tasks, go have some lunch, which is what I'm going to do after this, if there is still some salad left, and complete them like this. So that's the idea. And it is using, if might be interesting, it is using patch here in order to update the objects, as you can see there. All right, see there. All right. If you want to have a look at the one more thing before I finish. So there's a bunch of books that are interesting in this context. There is a, I think, very nice book on RESTful web APIs, which is fairly recent. I can recommend that also, to try to get your APIs right, and it's really hands-on, which I think is quite nice because there's also a lot of very abstract and academic stuff out there. Another fairly recent book is this Mastering Web Application Development with AngularJS. And then there's this AngularJS book from O'Reilly. I think the one in the middle is a bit better, but I also didn't read the whole thing yet. And if you want to have a look at the code, then you can look at the sources on GitHub. There's the two projects, the ToDo REST, the Java EE application, and the ToDo UI right there. And I used Twitter Bootstrap 3 actually for the, to make it a bit prettier. Yeah, so that's right there. Thanks very much, and have fun at the rest of the conference.